Navigating an SAP transformation? We get it. By day, we work hands-on with people like you across the globe. By night, we share what actually works. Welcome to Transformation Every Day with Alexander Greb and 𝐿 𝐭𝐻𝐿, where your complex transformation becomes clear, actionable, and achievable.
Welcome everybody. My name is Alexander Greb. I'm Consulting Director at CBS Corporate Business Solutions, and today we sit down with one of the leading voices in AI strategy, SAP alumni and top 10 AI advisor Andreas Welsch. We talk about why real AI leadership is about culture, not just technology, how agentic AI is reshaping the business landscape, why it's not about adding AI, it's about rethinking everything, the biggest mistakes companies make when adopting AI, and the future skills everyone should start building today. Whether you're in tech, consulting, or leadership, this executive AI briefing will change how you think about innovation, strategy, and what's next. On this episode of Transformation Every Day.
How easily you can now bring them back. And this is definitely the interesting thing in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot of potential.
Absolutely. And we're recording. Good morning.
Hey, Alex.
We have coffee here, we have water here, and we have Andreas Welsch.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm stoked. We're here still in Newtown Square in the SAP Experience Center, third floor. Very nice meeting room. And we have two people sitting here with you and me who used to be at SAP, and you are also not a part of SAP anymore.
That's right.
How come?
Well, I see there was tremendous opportunity in the industry to help many different companies and leaders, large and small companies, figure out what do we do with AI. Right? Everybody talks about AI. I see it in the media, I see it in the news. All my different vendors talk to me that I need to do something with AI, but where do I start? That's where I come in, because I am helping leaders figure out what is your AI strategy, what is your roadmap, how do you build this, what are the right things that we should even start with and look at and engage with, and how do we bring our people along? So from being with SAP previously for 23 years, last 8 years in machine learning, AI, from Leonardo to bringing AI into S4HANA, to building and leading SAP's marketing organization for business AI. I've worked with so many customers of SAP, large and small, and I've seen where the challenges are. So now I'm here to help them make the AI strategy successful.
You have been always one of the forerunners, and I think you were one of the first guys at SAP who really was talking about AI and had some ideas on how to leverage values. Since you left SAP and you are now more in a, let's say, independent position, you're not really a part of that bubble anymore. How did your perspective change on the possibilities of AI?
So I think when you look at AI as a whole, right, you see what you said, these opportunities that exist, that don't only exist within the ecosystem of SAP, but overall the impact that AI can have on business and that it also has on society in the way that we work. So for me, the question has always been, what does all of that mean? Right? There's so much technology coming out at a rapid pace that we're not even able to adopt it fast enough. What does it mean? Even if I get some AI in my business, in my workflow, in my flow of work, what does it lead to? Right? How does work change? And in my work now as an independent AI advisor, that means I'm responsible for all the departments. And I'm the chief marketing officer, I'm the chief revenue officer, the chief financial officer, and I need to look for ways that I can optimize my business and that I can scale me. So when I do that, I look for applications that are AI first, that can automate tasks, that can give me recommendations, suggestions, that can do things faster than I can do it myself.
So how do you use AI yourself for your job?
So most recently, I've automated my workflow going from live stream to podcast to newsletter to social posts. I use a tool called make.com that's great for automation between different tools. Uh-huh. And I integrate OpenAI's GPT-4o model to generate content and to disseminate content. So once I have a transcript from my live stream, I put this into this workflow, put it into GPT. That creates a newsletter article with all the right headings, the right tone. An API call to Stability AI generates an image that goes into the newsletter. The next step is then take the transcript, put it into a podcast episode description, publish that directly to the site where I host my podcast, so I don't even need to touch it, and then write 2 social posts for me that I can just review and automatically upload to LinkedIn. So what used to take me about 2 to 3 hours now takes 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Wow. And it scales a lot.
Yes. So anytime I see that I do something more than once or twice, I'd rather sit down and spend the time to figure out how can I automate this, because I know that I will need it next week and the week after and the week after, and then I'm faster.
Yeah. But what is interesting is that still the source of your content is 100%, let's call it brain. It's not like what you see at the moment, and it's rising immensely. Content which is 100% AI generated. Yeah, but it's about like you feel somebody was there and said like, hey, ChatGPT, write me a LinkedIn post about blah 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 blah. Yeah, and ChatGPT exactly does that, and you can read it and see it from everything. Yeah, is this something what you see as a part of? We have to learn how to use this tool properly, and there are right and wrong ways.
I think it depends what you want to achieve. I see myself as a thought leader, really putting deep thought into the work that I put out there. Again, to understand what does that mean, where are we going with this, how is this helping me, what are the things that nobody's talking about, but that we should actually be talking about. And I believe you can only do that if you put your own mind to it and your own thoughts. And that's the value that I see that I bring to my customers and to the community as a whole. But repurposing something that has already been said, I think that's perfectly fine to use AI, so long as you review it and you make sure that the output is correct and it's similar to your tone. But nobody's going to sit there, spend 2 hours, 3 hours writing this thing again from scratch. And you don't necessarily need to, right? The same ideas are there. Maybe it's not the exact words that you used, but if you link back to the original source, hey, if you want to listen to the podcast, if you want to watch the live stream, here it is, or here are some sound bites. But here's also a summary as if somebody else had written it for you. So I think there's the difference as a thought leader, putting your own thought and words into this. What does that mean? Where is this going? But then repurposing so you can create different formats out of the same piece of content.
So what do you see, or where do you see the theoretical next steps in that journey? So we have now the packaging of content that is humanly generated, which makes sense because that's what people want to hear. Yeah, I do not think that somebody would like to hear something what I made AI tell others. Then there's no sense in that. Yeah, that everybody can do this themselves. Yeah, but where do you see the next step in that journey?
So for me personally, one area that I'm really excited about is the part of agentic AI, right? And obviously it's this year's new hype topic and buzzword, but where I think that gets really interesting is if you have agents that do the research for you. What is the most important topic this week? Or can you find me the 5 most important articles on this topic and synthesize them? So then I can think about it, but I don't need to look for them myself, right? Just as one example. Or have a repository of your own content and make that available through an agent. So if you either need to create a new talk, or if maybe a customer asks you a question, right, your agent can help answer that for you.
So it's for creators mainly getting more of the research work done. But do you also think there may be new distribution methods of content based on AI, like feeding these kind of things to other GPTs, which may use it for their...
So To give you two examples. One, before the holidays, I recorded my audiobook, or I narrated my audiobook fully by using my AI voice clone. I went to a tool called 11 Labs. It's one of the best in the market these days.
Tell us, what is a voice clone? It sounds scaringly.
Good question. So a voice clone is an AI-generated equivalent of your voice. So you can just type text and you can produce audio that sounds as if you had spoken the text. So there are tools that let you do that. Like I said, 11 Labs is one of the leading platforms where you can do that. And I spent about 45 minutes reading just the sample text. So there was enough variance in my voice and ups and downs and modulation and whatever else. And I uploaded it. Within 30 minutes, that voice clone was created. And I spent about a day and a half, 2 days maybe, going through the manuscript of my book to clean it up, to make sure it's suited for voice cloning. The process, like I said, took about 2 to 3 days, cost about $100 for the license for 11 Labs. Getting a professional voice actor would have been $5,000, $6,000, and much longer time frame. So that is one area. Add to that now AI avatars, meaning replicas of a person, of me, of you, that look like you, that move their lips like you, add voice cloning to it, and all of a sudden you have a replica of you that just looks like you, talks like you, sounds like you. And I think that for content creation is the next big leap. We're already seeing companies doing this or using this for learning and development, for sales presentations. The many different companies that do this, 𝐿, Synthesia, DID are the three main ones, if you want to look them up or experiment with them yourselves. But the second example that I want to share with you is, earlier this week I recorded 2 courses with LinkedIn Learning on AI agents and agentic AI, how business leaders can prepare for that. This time we recorded them in German. The English ones are extremely popular already. But I'm actually wondering if that was maybe one of the last times that I've personally recorded these courses. Because thinking about voice cloning, AI avatars, how will content change and distribution change? I wouldn't be surprised if soon there's a model where I, as a creator, license my likeness and my voice to a company like LinkedIn Learning, and we write a script together, maybe they write a script, or I submit some content that I've previously created, and we replicate Andreas' tone and style. But I don't get paid for sitting in front of the camera for a day or 2. I get paid for licensing my look, my voice.
Or how would Andreas say this, or what would be his spin on that?
Exactly. So there are already companies out there doing this. There's one in Singapore called 𝐻𝐿 that uses AI and agents, and where you, as a go-to-market expert, for example, can upload your content, things that you've previously created, and then customers can book time with your agent. Instead of booking actual time with you on the phone and paying for this, they pay for access to your agent, and they can ask your agent, they can ask your avatar. So possibilities are endless.
Scary.
Yes.
And the weird thing is, we talked about it in the beginning, there's changes on a weekly basis.
And that's mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
So this afternoon I'm giving a talk here at the Newtown Square office about how enterprise architects can stay relevant, how can they stay on top of all this AI news. And last night I went through the headlines. So just for January, February, what were the main headlines? And at least every week there's one major headline. Beginning of January, Sam Altman said, we're building AGI, we have a good idea of what it looks like. The next week, it was agents will be in the workforce this year. We'll see the first agents. The next week, it was DeepSeek. Oh my God, right? Market frenzy, sell-offs, everything. The next week, it was, hey, here's Grok 3. Oh, Grok 3 by xAI doesn't have guardrails, so here are some negative side effects. Oh, now Anthropic comes out with a new model. Oh, now OpenAI comes out with one. So where do you disseminate and figure out what is actually relevant? And to me, it always comes down to that's a lot of this is noise, right? It's noise between companies that are raising funds, that need to drum up interest, that need to sell products.
Yeah.
But if you're in an IT role, if you're an enterprise architect, if you're figuring out for your company, what do we do with AI? I think the most you need to know is that, yes, things are moving. They're moving very, very fast. But stay grounded in what can you actually do, what can you use today, and what solves a real business problem.
And I think probably you should have an AI agent who consolidates all the news concerning AI each week. Yeah, because to be honest, when I making my plans, of course, it's not always. I'm not always able to make them happen immediately. Yeah, so it takes maybe a few days or a few weeks, and within those few weeks, you realize no, you basically have to start from zero again because the possibilities are now different. You got new stuff there, and Jesus, it's really, really becoming exhaustive. But in a certain way, it remembers me, and I'm old enough, fortunately or unfortunately, to have experienced already in the past another bubble. And I'm talking about the .com bubble that we had in the late 90s and in the early 2000s. And I was a university student back then, but I very intensively experienced that because I was working back then in Munich at a typical .com startup or young company, which was quite interesting. They did some content syndication stuff, or tried it at least, because back then a lot was trial and error and many ideas, but nobody really had a clue. And of course, this company went down the river after a few months, so I was out of this again. But would you agree that we have momentary in that AI realm a similar situation, that we are now, because that back then was .com or web 1.0, and we had this kind of boost, and then it disseminated again and went down, this kind of bubble, and then web 2.0 then brought the things that really made the difference. And do we have now the same situation that we maybe have now at the moment AI 1.0, which may have something like a similar curve, goes down and goes back up again with consolidated ideas? Or is this already something like a skyrocketing development which is going on and on and on?
I think there are two main forces at play here. One is software vendors building AI, advertising AI. The other one is companies that actually use it. And I think if they're not on a similar trajectory and a similar pace, it'll be really, really tough, right? Otherwise, software vendors come out with newer and newer models, newer and newer software, but we know the reality in business is that things are not moving as fast, right? There are people, there are processes, there are procedures. We need to look at security. We need to look at data privacy, information security, all these kind of things. We need to also make sure that we bring our people along on this journey. It's not just a matter of dumping a new technology on their laptop or on their desk and say, now you're more productive, right? Here, go use Copilot. Tomorrow, you're 30% more efficient. It doesn't quite work that way. It didn't work that way with Office. We all went through some kind of training, either at work or at university. So I think there are these different factors. Are we in a bubble? I think we are, because we are seeing more and more of this hype. And I think towards the end of 2024, we're starting to see that hype waning a little bit. And market analysts and the media were already calling the hype to flatten out. And are we hitting the trough of disillusionment? In some ways, I think, to me, that is AI or Gen AI 1.0. But what happened at the same time was the next hype cycle started with agentic AI. Right now, everybody is talking about agentic AI. Few people even know what this means or have even worked with an agent themselves. So before 1.0 flattens out, the next one starts again. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see the next hype starting before agentic AI hits the trough of the disillusionment, or people have the reckoning with it's actually not that easy, it's not that simple. By the way, I still need to have my data in order. I still need to have proper processes in place. I still need to train my people. Doesn't go away, never has, and probably won't for a long time.
Coming back on what you said a few minutes earlier, this hype and everybody talks about it, and it's very marketing driven. in certain areas. You remember when we had 20 years ago, everybody was calling himself .com, like also mysap.com, which was, of course, reverted back then, fortunately, after a year. Now the same thing happened with everybody calling themselves .ai. Still, if you dig deeper and ask some questions and so on, then some of those who pretend to make now this kind of new technology and the new wave, there is some if-else stuff beneath that. Yeah. So where do you think are those if-else things hidden, in your opinion? And where is the real stuff?
Great question about marketing for the guy that's built SAP's business AI marketing. So I got to give you that. No, so seriously, I think it goes back to what vendors on one hand need to say, right? To be relevant, to be seen as being relevant, what also to some extent customers want to see. Hey, I'm giving you all this money for your software. We used to have maintenance contracts, and part of the maintenance would go into R&D and further development. I'm still giving you money for a subscription, but how are you using that money? How are you investing it to make the product better? Well, we're adding AI. It makes it more efficient. So I think on one hand, you have these market dynamics and market forces where every vendor needs to say, now we're doing AI. If they don't, hey,
analysts would kill them, definitely.
In an instant. And you have the same also with financial investors who say, are you a good stock to invest in? How are you, advancing your product, making sure that you grow your total addressable market, and so on? So there's another incentive for companies, for vendors, for marketing departments to jump on that bandwagon. I think at the end of the day, like you said, the question is how much is real? How much is maybe generative AI? How much is machine learning? How much is rule-based? And I think companies, quite frankly, have probably been subsuming a lot of things under this AI term. And we've seen a lot of AI washing.
Yeah.
I think that's where it gets more important, even as a customer, to see how far can you look under the hood and how much is really there.
Yeah.
Again, the other part is even if companies now talk about agentic AI and the latest and greatest solutions, we'll see a lag in adoption. We've always seen this naturally in software in general. With machine learning, we've seen this in generative AI, we've seen this. We'll see the same thing in agentic AI, because companies need to go through a pilot phase, through an evaluation phase. They need to warm up to the idea of having software that makes decisions on somebody's behalf, even if it's just gathering information, right? Things that we might do in our personal lives as consumers, they're super easy, right? I can decide if I want to put some data there and what kind of data I put there. But if I'm responsible as an IT department to ensure the privacy of my company's data, not just for one person, but make sure that hundreds or thousands of people abide by these rules, that's a whole different ballgame. Right?
Yeah. I think there was this kind of topic when we talked about it yesterday, I think, when a certain company which was applying AI to look for things, to find stuff, then suddenly stuff came up visibly, like paychecks and so on, which weren't supposed to be there or to be visible to everyone, and of course to that AI. How badly are we prepared for that, in your opinion?
Very badly.
It is like that.
I'm pretty sure we're very badly prepared. And I think part of that reason is that organizations have been chasing that shiny object, whatever that was this year or the last 3 years. And it's been hard for leaders to get the buy-in, to get the funding for the more fundamental things, right? Before you can do a real AI project or build an AI model yourself or a machine learning model yourself, you need to look at your data. Do I have the data? Is it the right data? What does our data quality look like? Is the data fresh? Is it clean? Is it complete? Now, that hasn't gone away with generative AI. There are methods like retrieval augmented generation, where you can pull in some data to generate a better prompt, to generate better output that is more tailored to the actual topic that your user is inquiring about. That still needs data, right? And so, again, you still need to have the right data, clean data, fresh data, and so on. And I think that's where a lot of organizations are struggling because they find we don't have that yet. But we need to put it in place.
So you see the optimization and innovation at the moment be very, very edge focused. But there is in the core, in the baseline, still so many work to do to make this stuff really run, that probably in the future an additional focus will have to be put on these things.
I'm convinced that's the case. But I mean, look, everyone can have ChatGPT on their phone. Why can't I have that in IT? And even if I'm an IT leader, getting the buy-in to do a data project is a lot harder to do than getting buy-in to roll out Copilot or some other AI software. Because my executive leaders, my top management, they see AI in the news all the time. They ask me, what's our AI strategy? How are we using AI? What can we use it for? Nobody's asking, do we have the right data to make this actually good?
I listened to a talk lately by Jeff Scott, the 𝐴𝐵𝐼 CEO, and other interesting people in there. And they were talking about AI fatigue already happening. Yeah? AI is so present that some people start to, hey, come on, give me a break. Yeah? Let's lean back. And the argument those people are giving for saying like, hey, I want to have a break with that topic is that at the moment the AI application is adding stuff, adding AI to legacy technology, to legacy applications. Those applications where AI is enabling certain things, like for analytics and for, these kinds of nice additional functionality, is nice and this is a good thing. But all those applications are far from being core AI. They're not. Those architectures are not built based on, if I would put AI at the center, how would this in the end and come up? Do you see such next generation applications already on the horizon?
You see, I'm pausing. I think that's a really tough one to answer. I am not seeing them from the incumbents, right? And it's incredibly hard to drive that kind of leapfrog innovation within any larger organization that's been successful doing similar things that they've done over the last decades. Doesn't matter if you've started on-prem or if you started in the cloud. So I believe those that will create these new applications or these new ways of, or software that enables new ways of working, those companies aren't even born. They don't even exist yet. Right? And I think that's, on one hand, the biggest opportunity for anybody looking to get into this space and to really change it up. And at the same time, it's the biggest threat to those that have been in business for decades, doing business as usual, adding new technologies underneath or on top, because that innovation will very likely not happen from within.
I'm also sure that many companies will have their Nokia moment probably happening because of that. And that's, like I said, definitely also a reason why everybody tries now to be in the game with that and be visible and so on. But like I said, I think that's stuff which will take a little bit time. That may be that AI 2.0. Yeah, like when you have an order and you do not have really processes defined anymore, no components, industry components anymore, which are defining special processes and workflows, but you have an AI force that takes, an AI agent that takes the order and then decides based on his intelligence what would be the natural and logical next step until this kind of order is in the end then realized. Is this something, an idea like this for 5 years, 2 years, 10 years?
Those questions, taking a look at the looking glass or
Absolutely,
at the crystal ball, they're always tough. Let me answer it this way, and coming back to the AI fatigue. I'm not surprised that there's AI fatigue, right? Because, like you already covered, everybody talks about AI. Every software vendor, every management consulting company, everybody talks about AI that somehow touches either software or business. So the question is, what is really relevant, what can I actually do, and what can I actually use. So there, coming back to the other question, again, software vendors can make the best technology available. If it's not being adopted, doesn't really help, right? Part of the AI fatigue, I believe, also comes from that leaders say, show me the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Show me the real use cases, show me the value, show me the proof points. Crossing the chasm, right? The old innovation management theory. And I think we're starting to see that early, these early adopters forming, but it will take some time until we see a large scale, wider scale deployment. And I think then AI fatigue will very quickly flip into, oh my God, we need to do something again because we haven't done anything, because we thought this is going away and everybody just talks about it and nobody delivers anything. Right? And then you're back in that rush, and that will very likely not yield the results that you actually need, because you're not thinking clearly, you're not starting with a strategy, you're looking at where can we use AI? Everybody says they're using AI. And that's usually the worst starting point to begin with.
But maybe that's also just exactly what we need as humans to start to work with that and to get used to that, and to use a plateau-driven approach there to make that happen. Because I'm sure in years when we look back, what we're doing now and where we're now stunned and in awe, we will see that as cute incremental use cases on top of legacy systems. But this is probably the way it has to start, because no society, no business is really prepared for which is up to come.
But I think once you start, the first companies in your industry do this and do this well and talk about it, either in earnings calls or in press releases, in customer stories, then I think it'll create a lot of pressure on your company as well to act.
Yeah.
Look, if they're doing this and if they're cutting out 10% of cost, how can we do that? And how can we double that? Yeah. Right?
Let's continue on the human side of that, because for me, in many areas of innovation, private people, private persons, me, you, in our private lives, we are quite often quicker and faster to adopt innovation than organizations are able to do that. Imagine for example, when you back then had your first mobile iPhone, when you did that switch, I remember it was we really went from the capabilities there. You looked into that kind of technology and so you said, hey, how can I make this useful for my way of living? And you found out, okay, it's Google Maps helps myself, or Komoot and all these kinds of stuff. In business, companies are often, and ourselves, are much more reluctant. When you talk to the same people working at the customer who are using iPhones and so on, and then argue with you why they still want to continue using their 25-year-old UIs in ERP systems, you see there is a difference in our professional lives, in our personal lives. Do you see strategies how organizations and enterprise can overcome this and be more agile and more flexible?
So I think, first of all, it's not a quite fair comparison. I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison, right? So those that embrace new technologies like ChatGPT, they're usually at the forefront. They are not the challenge that you run into in business. It's those that even don't use it in their personal lives because they're not interested, maybe they're concerned about it, maybe they could care less about technology. So the question is, how do you bring those along? Right? And it's not just people, right? It's culture as a whole. How do you create a culture in which you embrace new technologies? I want you to use this. Last year, Slack did a workforce analysis in the fall, and they found that amongst the participants, 46% said, I'm actually not telling my manager I'm using AI in my work because I'm afraid that they think I'm lazy. They might think I'm incompetent, or worst case, I just end up with more work because now I'm 20% more productive. Right?
Yeah.
So to me, that comes back to culture. So as a manager, as a leader, now is the moment to encourage your team members to work with AI, to try this out, even if it takes a little longer, it's worth investing the time, because you need to build that muscle. You need to build that muscle memory of how we will interact and how we are interacting with this technology. So yes, culture is a big thing. We've already touched on information security, data privacy. They're a lot more complex if I work with proprietary data than if I ask for a recipe at home, right? Asking for a recipe involving a can of paint is a whole different story if you're in the specialty chemicals area than if you ask for a dinner recipe for a can of tuna.
That's true.
So, so there's a lot more complexity involved in business. But I think, given that the pace is so rapid with all these innovations, and that there are companies that are adopting this already today, maybe not on a mass scale yet, organizations need to catch up. Maybe they don't need to match the pace of the AI labs quite yet, but you need to have a strategy for how do I bring this kind of innovation in? How do I evaluate it? How do I even know that this is something that's valuable, that is worth maybe even paying extra for, but I don't need to develop it myself? So culture, still information security, IT, data as a big thing. And then obviously your processes, right? If your processes are 20, 25 years old, well, maybe now is a good time to take a look at them and revisit them. And by the way, that would have been already 5 years ago and 10 years ago too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because just putting AI on it would be only a bottom line optimization. This is effectiveness, yes, but not efficiency. No, sorry, this is efficiency, but not effectiveness, which is top line. You are quite common guest in C-level offices, which probably ask you questions like I ask you now. Where should we start when in being interested in these kinds of new possibilities? How should a typical, let's call it a bit-sized company, to bring the complexity a little bit down, how should they approach that topic? And where do you see, let's say, the top 3 worst practices companies fall into when implementing AI?
Honestly, that's probably the question I usually take the most issue with. Where should we start? What should we do? Because, when you talk about what are, for example, the 3 use cases for AI that we should do, to me, that's like going to a dentist and you get a root canal, but all you need is a cleaning. Maybe you don't even have the problem. So, right. So, in a sense, to me, where we need to start is looking at business strategy first. What does it look like for your individual business? How are you planning to grow your revenue? What are maybe some new products or some new product lines that you're planning on introducing? Yes, maybe also where can we take out some cost, because we can do it more efficiently. We can do it faster. We can automate things, and the like. So there's not really a one-size-fits-all answer. Certainly, there are a lot of tools now available that have AI embedded. Pretty much any software that's come out in the last 2 years and has received an update in the last 2 years, there is AI in there. So you can look at these things. You can look at meeting transcription. You can look at document processing with AI. You can look at contract management, looking for inconsistencies, looking for variances, comparing contracts, drafting contracts more quickly. You can have your first agents that go out and do part of the business development role for you. The question is, do you need that? Mm-hmm. So where should companies start? I think turns the problem on its head. It's more, where does the company want to go, and how does AI enable that company to achieve that goal?
So you should ask, as far as I learned from you now, still the same question that you should ask in every technological initiative, technical initiative. Like, what is my strategy? What do I need to be able to achieve? What are the capabilities I need to achieve that? And then start from there.
It sounds boring, but that's what it is.
It's always the same question.
Always the same. But as long as there are people, right, we'll go in circles and we'll answer them for AI, we'll answer them for quantum computing, we'll answer them for whatever comes next.
That's interesting. And when you listen to these discussions that are at the moment happening in the DSAG, ASACs, and so on, of course, there is this tone that, hey, you should be a cloud company, because that first, on a technical way, makes it possible for you to access AI. And also, this is sometimes what is a little bit less loudly said, this shows that you are able to embrace technology. So that would be a proof that you are better suited to use AI. Is this correct, or do you think like AI is truly for everybody?
I think AI can be for everybody if you have the right foundation in place. Using AI in your cloud environment gives you a lot more opportunities, a lot more scale, a lot more options to go with different technology providers, for example, right? I remember we're working on this for BTP to bring in all the different foundation model providers. So you have choice as a customer. Also, SAP has choice what they can choose in it. You can't do that on premise. And especially if you're, for example, a mid-sized company, from a cost perspective, right? Running your own infrastructure, now adding AI, getting NVIDIA's hardware in your data center is very costly, right? But consuming APIs from OpenAI or Microsoft or others, I can make a business case for them, right?
Absolutely.
It's probably still a significant amount, but it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and especially not upfront investment. So, yes, I think that the case for cloud makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's the predominant paradigm these days, and has been for quite some time. So staying on premise, yeah, I mean, sure, you can do that. There are also still people with horses and carts, right? For many different reasons. But we also have airplanes. They also serve a different purpose. So purpose, but also the innovation, being able to get to places faster, I think is what you need to consider there.
Do you observe notable differences in AI adoption across industries or regions? Are there ones who are quicker, more advanced, more heading towards it? Are others that, are a little bit slower in that, or maybe not so approachable for AI?
I think sometimes it's hard to tell fact from fiction. What you see. I think geographically we're seeing the US and China definitely leading its head-to-head with all the latest developments. I think Europe is a lot more conservative for good reasons, but as we always also hear, is keeping that in balance between regulation and innovation is a fine line. But I think it's mainly where in an organization do you use it, and I see a lot of departmental use cases for AI in that sense, right? Marketing, writing marketing copy, creating ads, creating new visuals. Think of Adobe Firefly, for example, to generate images that are legally sound, because they were generated on Adobe's already licensed content. Things like that, where AI makes its way into these functions. Sales, whether it's drafting your sales emails or it's scheduling calls with your customers and prospects, these kind of things. I think those are the two that are leading that I see. In terms of industries, I think you see a lot in healthcare that's happening, a lot in financial services. And guess what? Those are two of the industries that have been working on AI and machine learning for a long time, right? That have run statistical models before it was even cool, before we even called it AI or machine learning. So there's a lot more adoption happening also at a faster pace. And I think these organizations are typically better prepared for this kind of transformation. If you look at engineering, construction, manufacturing, more traditional industries, I think they tend to be a lot more conservative. Again, everybody for their right reasons. But what you must not neglect is seeing what are your competitors doing, what's happening in your industry, what's happening in other industries and adjacent industries, and how are they innovating, right? Can they out-innovate you? Can they outpace you? These kind of things. Not to sound alarmist, right, or regurgitate the common phrases here.
But fair point. And the effect on us personally and on the individuals, this is also not something we have not really talked about yet. Because I did a few weeks ago a LinkedIn post, which was, I confess, a little bit provocative, because I wanted to provoke little bit the discussion what this means for us, especially in SAP consultant work. I made some assumptions, which of course were debatable, like probably certain activities would not be needed from a human side anymore because it would be easier driven by AI and automated by AI, while others may thrive because to have this kind of new tool at hand may make their value add even more important than it is already now. And we see already now happening that AI is able to do optimizations within your SAP applications and within your SAP architectures. What's your take on this pushback? Because those who said in that post, no, nothing will change for me. Yeah, and all those guys, they are intelligent people. They are technological affine, but still they think, no, you will need manual testing even in years. Yeah, it won't change anything. What's your take on that? Is this the typical human resistance to think, hey, I'm not involved in that. I'm not in danger.
I think it's hard for humans to conceive what is possible or what can be possible, especially if you haven't seen it yet. Will it be possible? Is very, very likely, or it's even possible today, right? And we're seeing the first steps and the first glimpses at that, using AI or using agents to clean up your custom code, right? Get back to standard, these type of things, or like I said, system optimization, landscape optimizations. I'm convinced if the technology performs reliably and is enterprise grade, and it delivers the same or similar outcome, or same or better outcome, I should say, for a lower cost, companies are going to do it. They're going to invest in AI because the case is pretty clear, right? It does it as well as a person does it. It does it faster, and it does it cheaper.
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to happen. But I think what that means for us as individuals is also thinking, well, if that happens, how is my role going to change?
Yeah.
It's very likely not going to happen tomorrow, but at some point in the near future. So how do you prepare for it, right? Do you become the person that knows best how to instruct these tools, to work with these tools, to review the output? Maybe you're not the person doing this manual testing anymore yourself. Maybe you also don't write the test cases, but you review it and you say, yes, that passes or that fails, or here are some things that we should change. But change, like we've seen time and again, is inevitable.
Yeah.
And it'll be inevitable here as well. But like I said, it's important also as leaders and as companies that we bring our people along on this journey, that we show them where is this going, what is your role going to look like. And it's hard because we haven't done that before, right? It's a huge effort, it's a huge transformation in a company, probably as big as when the internet came or when we went from typewriters to computers, or these types of big shifts, even bigger than that, I would say. So there are not a lot of people around who have done these huge transformational changes. So we need to equip them better, both leaders as well as individual contributors, and show them where this is going.
If you're an individual who works in that area, do you see strategies that people should follow to develop themselves, or which new skills should be consultants and white-collar professionals develop in an AI-driven environment of the future?
I would say the first generic skill is adaptability, and that's the hardest.
Yeah.
Because very few people really like change or love change. Usually people are quite happy with the way things are because they've been this way for a long time, and I'm quite comfortable. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm confident. I identify myself with that role and being an expert in that role. Maybe people come to you and ask for advice, so they know you're the expert, right? All of a sudden, this might change or might be turned upside down. So I think the job you're doing today won't be the job that you're doing tomorrow. Tasks will change. Everybody will also become a leader of a team. Maybe not a team of fellow humans, but maybe of agents, right, that work for you, that do some work on your behalf. So we need to develop these skills. How do we interact, again, with new kinds of technology? At one point, it was enter commands. Then it was click buttons and fill out forms, SAP GUI. Now it'll be, how do I interact with agents such that they understand what I actually mean and what I need, and that they have enough information and context to go and gather the information, gather the insights, and then come back to me, that I act on it. So I think everybody will have a lot more capabilities at their fingertips than they already have. And to me, the best way is start using AI tools, even if it's in your personal life, because the more you get accustomed to how do I interact with these tools, what are they capable of, what are the shortcomings, the more it will also help you in your business, in your business role. So adaptability, being able to anticipate change and to react to it. I think anticipating is even more important. So you know the Wayne Gretzky phrase, skate where the puck is going.
Exactly, yes. Right? Exactly. Not where it is, but where it's going to be.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's the mentality you need to adopt. And obviously, again, vendors are going to put out new software, are going to put out new features. If you're in the SAP ecosystem, you've seen it as well, the pace at which SAP has accelerated the implementation of AI and introduction of AI in its products. So whatever your specialty and your niche is and your expertise is, what does it mean for you? How do you use that? How does that change the work? How does it change the workflow for your customer, for somebody running through that business process multiple times a day? That kind of understanding is what you need to also be a trusted advisor and continue being a trusted advisor to your customers as a consultant.
But turns out the baseline strategies remain the same like they always have been. Yeah, it used to be every time, be it that you are an individual or an organization, that you have this kind of trap value gap which is opening up. Yeah, like you could be, if you're open and if you're curious and so on, you could have multiple set of capabilities that put you up front, that give you advantage as an individual or organization. You do not have to do it, but definitely if you do, you will be in an advantage. And I think the other part of that thing is that if we look what AI could give us, where it may replace certain consultants, are areas which have been white spots in a landscape anyway. Like, for example, how many migrations, SAP migrations from ECC to HANA or S4HANA did you have that where you just did the technical part, the migration part, then you did the go live, but you did not do the optimization part because it would have been another 3-4 months project. You did not have any budget left, or people wanted to go back to their daily business, or you know what I mean. And exactly those topics, optimization, which were left out, can now be done by AI quite quickly. So it's an enhancement, again, like in many cases, not necessarily just a threat.
I couldn't agree more. And maybe also building on that, right? We've seen this over the last couple of years too. Companies have been doing technical migrations in many cases that, we'll look at innovation later. And they hardly ever do, because you need the resources again, you need budget again, and you need sponsorship again. Yeah. But hang on, we've just done this huge migration to S4HANA, to the cloud, and now you tell me
you should open up this package again. Yeah,
yes.
Typical question.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, I would encourage your listeners who are on this journey to look at capabilities that are available today, understand what's on the roadmap, what is coming, so you can incorporate them in your migration. Yes, it will be additional effort, but just the technical migration, again, means putting a horse and a cart on a train.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it a lot faster.
What are the questions about AI in an enterprise that no one seems to be asking but should be?
I think one of the questions that leaders should ask in their organizations is, how can we actually implement AI such that our employees see the value instead of the threat?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes, again, down to culture, comes down to communication. All of a sudden, there is some piece of software that is supposed to do the work that I've been doing forever, for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And this thing supposedly knows it better than I do. And it does it faster and cheaper. What does it mean? Does it mean I'm training my replacement? And again, we've been there with BPO. So, right, we're seeing a revival of sorts there. But also where the concerns are. So I think showing what are the opportunities? Why are we asking you to work with these tools? Why are we making them available to you in the end? So you have time for higher value tasks. And we've been saying this for the last 10 years, roughly, right?
Yeah.
It gets a little old, but if organizations mean that genuinely and truthfully, I think that's something that you should tell your employees as a leader. You should tell them, hey, the plan is not to reduce the workforce by 50%, but to give you tools so you can do your work more efficiently and more effectively. And here's how you can use them. So training goes along with that too, number one. Number two, how can we actually get top management buy-in to do data projects that will set us up to build successful AI products? Going back to the foundation.
Yeah. Get the stuff together so AI delivers answers that actually make sense.
Yes, right? It's not shiny.
Yeah.
It's not as shiny as AI, but you need to do the groundwork so you can build your skyscraper.
That doesn't make a good LinkedIn post.
It doesn't. No. I can tell you. Sometimes I make those and they don't perform well.
But they're necessary. Not the post, but the actions.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I think the last question is, who can help us on that path? Right? Who can help us figure that out?
Great consultants.
So, yeah, great
companies.
So yeah, that's why I went independent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not that people just can listen your voice, be it real or be it augmented, but very, very conservatively, we can also read your wisdom. Tell me about your book.
Yeah. Hey, so in the fall, I published my first book. It's called the AI Leadership Handbook, and it helps leaders turn technology hype into business outcomes. So in the AI Leadership Handbook, I lay out the 9 facets or aspects of successful AI leadership based on interviews with more than 60 AI leaders that I've done over the last 2 years as part of my live stream and podcast, What's the Buzz? And what they have shared. And it's never just about technology, right? It's about governance, it's about stakeholder management, it's about storytelling, it's about culture, collaboration, center of excellence, building a roadmap of valuable use cases and identifying what are use cases that are valuable to begin with. So I would encourage you to pick that up if you want to learn about how you can implement AI in your business successfully and look at all the things in addition to technology that you need to get right. And there are quite a lot.
It's still possible to not just to read you, but also listen to you and watch you on What's the Buzz.
Yeah,
Correct?
exactly. Yeah, I run it every week. It's called What's the Buzz on LinkedIn. It's a LinkedIn live session, usually every Tuesday at noon. You also find it on my YouTube channel, Intelligence Briefing. If you want to work with me, whether it's for keynotes or sessions or workshops, you can find more information on intelligence-briefing.com and get in touch with me.
We will add the links to the show notes so people can be close to you quite quickly. And Andreas, I'm very happy to have you here, be able to talk to you. It was a pleasure as always.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to the next chance.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
So long.
Have a great day.